Before we dive in, this story proves that one simple decision can change everything. From heartbreak to hope, from a missed chance to a life-changing moment. This is a journey you won't forget. Don't forget to subscribe to Simply Stories. For more powerful tales like this, she woke before the sun, nerves buzzing beneath her skin. Today wasn't just another day, was the chance she'd been working toward for months. Her resume, freshly printed and neatly tucked into a folder, felt heavier than usual in her bag, like it carried all the weight of her dreams. Dressed in a secondhand blazer that she'd ironed the night before until the seams were sharp, and wearing shoes that pinched slightly at the heel but looked the part, she boarded the early morning bus into the city, rehearsing interview answers. In her head, with each stop that passed, confidence was fragile, and she had determination in her bones. The city stirred around her as she stepped off the bus, just a few blocks away from the sleek tower where her future might begin. Glass and steel loomed ahead, reflecting ambition, and money and success, things she'd always felt just one step away from. Her pace quickened. She checked her phone. 10 minutes to spare. Enough time to breathe, smooth out the wrinkles on her skirt, maybe even collect her thoughts one last time before she walked through those revolving doors. But fate didn't care about timing. As she turned a corner, she froze. Just ahead at a crosswalk, an elderly man had dropped his grocery bags. Oranges rolled into the gutter. A box of rice exploded open on the sidewalk. The man's cane wobbled as he bent, trembling, trying to gather the mess while cars honked impatiently and passers-by passed by. No one slowed. No one helped. It would have been easy to do the same, to look away, to pretend she hadn't seen. Her interview was 5 minutes away. This was her only chance. She stood there for a second, torn, but then she moved. She jogged to him, crouched beside him, and began picking up items. The man looked startled. No, I'm okay, he insisted, embarrassed. She smiled gently but firmly. Let me help. Together, they gathered the scattered food. She steadied him when he swayed, adjusted the strap of his worn shoulder, bag, and walked him to a nearby bench. His breathing was shallow, his hands unsteady. He looked tired, not just from the fall, but from life. She called a car service on her phone and waited beside him, not leaving until he was safely inside. He tried to thank her, but she just waved it off and said, "Please take care of yourself." Then she ran. Sweat bloomed under her arms as she sprinted the final 2 blocks, heart pounding for an entirely different reason now. She reached the building and yanked open the doors, hair sticking to her forehead. The security guard glanced at her and buzzed her in. She rushed to the front desk. "I had an interview," she gasped. "For the internship. I'm just a little late." The receptionist didn't even look up. "They've wrapped already. Interviews ended 5 minutes ago." She stood there, stunned. "Please, I had a good reason, no exceptions," the woman said flatly. She didn't cry, not right away. She just nodded, thanked her with a quiet voice, and walked back out through the doors. The world outside hadn't changed. People still rushed past. Cars still honked, but inside her, something cracked. All that preparation, all the hope. She felt like she'd watched her dream evaporate in the heat. Rising off the pavement, she sat on a bench across the street and stared up at the building that might have held her future. Her stomach growled, a reminder that she hadn't eaten. She reached into her bag and pulled out the apple she'd brought, biting into it absently. She tried to tell herself she'd done the right thing, that helping someone mattered. Maybe, somehow, it would all work out. But doubt crept in fast. Maybe she should have walked by. Maybe she could have explained the delay if she'd arrived. Earlier, even by a minute, she leaned back, let the sun warm her face, and fought the swirl of disappointment building behind her eyes. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that her every move had been seen. Not by the security cameras, not by the people who walk past without stopping, but by someone very important. Someone who, at that very moment, was sitting in a boardroom high above the city, watching a different kind of resume unfold. And, while she sat there thinking she'd failed, Wheels of something much bigger had already started turning, high above the noise of the city. Sunlight poured through the expansive windows of a glass-walled boardroom where the morning's final round of internship interviews had just concluded. The room was sleek and silent, except for the sound of paper shuffling and soft murmurs between executives. The CEO sat at the head of the table, his fingers steepled, his eyes scanning a short list of names that had been printed out with notes. In the margins buzz, words, personality traits, credentials. But as he flipped through the stack, a look of dissatisfaction shadowed his face. Everything was polished. Too polished. Each candidate had said the right things, worn the right clothes, smiled at the right moments. But none of it felt real. None of them had left an imprint that would linger after the meeting adjourned. Same answers, different suits, one executive muttered, echoing what they were all thinking. Another nodded. It's like they all read the same blog post about how to get hired. The CEO didn't respond. He merely stared down at the paper, as if willing one of those names to stand out on the page. But they didn't. Then came a knock. 3 soft taps on the frosted glass door. Everyone turned as the door creaked open, and a familiar figure stepped in, one of the building's security guards. Still in uniform, hat respectfully in hand. He hesitated, clearly uncertain if he was overstepping. The CEO looked up. Yes. Sir, the guard began, glancing around the room. I know this isn't the usual chain of command, but the young woman who missed her interview earlier, this morning she's still downstairs. She helped someone outside the building, an old man. His groceries had spilled into the street. No one else stopped, but she did. The room went quiet, brows furrowed. One of the board members spoke first. What does that have to do with she missed her slot because of it? The guard cut in, his voice more confident now. People saw it happen. Words going around. The CEO raised an eyebrow. She helped someone, instead of coming to the interview. The guard nodded. A moment of silence followed. Then, another executive reached for the security feed tablet on the table and tapped into the lobby footage. A few swipes later, they pulled up a video file time-stamped 30 minutes earlier. There she was, centering through the glass doors. Out of breath, cheeks flushed, clearly trying to compose herself. She spoke to the front desk, her hands moved nervously. Her mouth shaped the words, "I'm sorry." Then she waited, fidgeting, until she finally turned and walked away. Her shoulders visibly slumped. No one said a word. But one man slowly pushed his chair back and rose from the table. The CEO. He stepped closer to the screen, squinting as if to be sure. Then something in his face shifted recognition, and something warmer. That's her, he said quietly. The room turned to him in confusion. He let out a breath, stepped back from the screen and ran a hand along the back of his neck. That's the young woman from this morning. There was a pause. The one who helped the man. Someone asked. He nodded. Yes, that man was me. Shock rippled through the room. One of the board members blinked. Wait. Who? The CEO gave a faint, almost amused smile. Walked the neighborhood most mornings before work, dressed down. No driver, no staff, just me. Clears my head. He looked back at the screen, his tone quieting. I dropped my bag, slipped on the curb. People walked by like I was invisible. Then she came running out of nowhere. No hesitation. No expectation. She didn't recognize me. Didn't ask for anything. She just helped. Mouths hung open. Another executive shook her head in disbelief. She gave up her interview. To help you? She didn't know it would cost her the interview, he said. But even if she had, I don't think it would have. Changed her choice. No one knew what to say. One of the younger board members leaned forward, tapping a pen against his notepad. So, what should we do? The CEO's answer came without hesitation. Send her up. There was no vote, no discussion. Concern about policies or procedures or HR red tape. Just a single order spoken with quiet authority that left no room for argument. A few minutes later, as the security guard walked out, with a subtle smile, the boardroom remained still. The weight of what had just been revealed settling over them. The CEO stood at the window again, watching the city hum far below, and as he waited for the elevator doors to open, He thought about the people they'd interviewed that morning, those with crisp suits, prepared speeches, and shining ambition. Then he thought about the girl who didn't walk by. It's the one who didn't just say she cared about people, she showed it. He didn't need to read her resume. He'd already seen exactly who she was. She sat alone on the bench, resume limp in her hands, the weight of disappointment pressing against her chest. Like a stone? The morning sunlight had shifted, casting longer shadows on the sidewalk as the city moved on around her. Indifferent to the silent heartbreak unfolding on that concrete seat, her phone lay in her lap, useless now.
Ow.
There would be no callbacks, no second chances. The moment she'd worked for had slipped away, not because she hadn't tried, but because she had chosen to care. And in that moment, it felt like the world didn't reward kindness, it punished it. She was about to stand, to leave before the ache in her chest could spill over into tears, when the receptionist's voice called out to her from the building's front doors. "Excuse me," the woman said, softer now, her earlier indifference replaced with something that sounded a lot like "Ah, you're requested on the top floor." She blinked. "What?" "At the top floor," the woman repeated. "Penthouse office. They asked for you by name." Still stunned, she followed the directions, her legs moving before her mind could catch up. She stepped into the elevator, heart hammering, the hum of machinery rising with her as each floor ticked by. 52 floors, 52 silent heartbeats. She checked her reflection in the mirrored walls, wiped at the sweat on her brow, tried to make sense of why someone would call her up now, after everything had already been decided. When the doors slid open, she stepped into a world she had never imagined for herself. The office was enormous, rimmed with floor-to-ceiling windows that bathed everything in golden light. The carpet beneath her feet was softer than anything she'd ever walked on. Art hung on the walls, real art, not the cheap kind found in waiting rooms. And directly ahead stood a man in a perfectly tailored suit, surrounded by a group of people who looked like they belonged on magazine covers. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Himp, the old man from the street, tote, but not old. Not frail, not hunched over and fumbling with groceries. He stood tall now, his presence commanding yet kind, his eyes twinkling with recognition. She gasped. "You're," he smiled gently. "Yes," he said, "and I haven't forgotten what you did for me this morning." She glanced around, still unsure if this was some elaborate trick, but the faces watching her weren't mocking. They were curious, respectful. "Waiting, please," he said, motioning to the seat across from him. "Sit," she lowered herself into the chair, her hands still clutching the resume like a lifeline. But there were no folders in front of him, no clipboard, no notepad, none of the traditional signs of an interview, just him, watching her with quiet interest. He didn't ask about her GPA, or her technical skills, or where she saw herself in 5 years. Instead, he asked her about her family, about her community, about what she believed in when no one else was looking. And most importantly, he asked her why she had stopped to help a stranger when it had clearly cost her everything she'd hoped for that day. Her voice trembled as she answered. "Because I couldn't just walk by," she said. "I know what it's like to feel invisible. I know what it's like when no one sees you." And I thought, maybe it mattered, even if no one else stopped. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't pretend to be someone else. She simply told the truth. He listened in silence, nodding slowly, his expression softening with each word. Around them, the board remained quiet, watching with eyes that had seen dozens of candidates today, but none like her. After a pause, the CEO leaned forward. "You've already passed the interview," he said simply. She blinked, unsure she'd heard him right. "What?" "I just wanted to meet you," he said. "To meet the kind of person who chooses humanity over ambition, that can't be taught. And we've had enough applicants today who've memorized the right answers." "You live the right answer." Her throat tightened, opened her mouth to speak but couldn't find the words. He reached for a folder beside him and handed it across the table. She took it with shaking fingers and opened it. Inside was an offer letter, a full-time paid internship, position that came with housing assistance. A mentorship directly under the CEO himself. Her name was typed in bold across the top. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why me?" He smiled. "Because talent can be taught, but heart, that comes from who you are. And we don't just want smart minds here. We want good people." She looked at the paper again, the black ink blurring as her tears finally fell. He stood and extended his hand. "Welcome," he said. "We're lucky to have you." And for the first time that day, she believed something she hadn't dared hope. Maybe doing the right thing really could change everything. The moment she stepped off the elevator that first day as an intern, something shifted in the air, though. She couldn't have known it at the time. Her presence, quiet and humble, carried with it a weight much larger than any resume could hold. Whispers moved through departments, passed from break rooms to boardrooms. "She's the one, people," murmured the girl who missed her interview. For a stranger, her story spread faster than any corporate memo, faster than any press release, till it became something more than a tale. It became a symbol. At first it was just curiosity. Employees peeked at her in passing, nodded politely, tried to get a glimpse of the girl who had done what most wouldn't. But then the story found its way into company newsletters, into the welcome speeches for new hires. Her story was retold not to elevate her, but to challenge everyone else to ask themselves who they were when no one was watching. And before long, her name became associated not just with a singular moment of compassion, but with a rising standard of integrity. The CEO didn't let the moment pass as just a feel-good anecdote. He stood at the next leadership summit in front of the entire company, said something that made headlines before the applause had even stopped echoing. "From now on, we hire not just for resumes, but for heart. We lead not just with strategy, but with empathy, compassion first." That wasn't just a slogan.
Ow.
Within weeks, the company rolled out a new initiative, Humanity in Hiring, which evaluated candidates on more than just numbers and degrees. Interviewers were trained to ask about decisions people made under pressure, to listen for integrity, not just ambition. Community service became part of employee development. Empathy was promoted, not seen as weakness. Her moment of kindness had become policy, and she thrived. She didn't walk in with the loudest voice or the flashiest ideas, but she listened better than most and worked harder than many noticed. She was the first to arrive and the last to leave, not because she was trying to prove anything, but because she genuinely cared. Her coworkers soon realized that she wasn't just the girl from the story. She was smart, organized, and fiercely creative. She solved problems with both logic and warmth. Clients trusted her. Teams leaned on her. Managers began to rely on her. Instinct. One promotion turned into two, and then another. The speed at which she climbed the ladder startled even her. But the CEO never looked surprised. It was as though he had seen it all along. After one particularly difficult project that had nearly collapsed until she salvaged it with both innovation and diplomacy, she found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a handwritten note. Just one paragraph, penned in dark ink on thick paper. Read, "Thank you for reminding me that the best leaders are first good people." She sat holding the note long after the office lights had dimmed, thinking about the grocery bags scattered on the road that day, and the cars that sped past, and the moment she had almost walked away. That simple choice to stop, to help, had changed the arc of her entire life. Years passed, she grew more confident, more seasoned. Her presence in meetings no longer a surprise but an expectation. People sought her out for advice. Her voice became one of the most trusted in the building. And then one morning, she received an invitation no longer to meet with leadership, to join it. The office was the same, 52 floors up, sunlight pouring in like it had the day everything began. But this time, she didn't walk in, clutching a resume. She didn't wait outside hoping someone would give her a second chance. She walked in as the new vice president. The boardroom stood and applauded. The CEO, now older and grayer, greeted her with a warm handshake and a proud smile. "Full circle," he said quietly. She smiled back. All because of one moment. He nodded. The right moment. Her portrait would soon hang alongside others' leaders. Who had shaped the company's legacy? But unlike the rest, hers wouldn't be remembered just for the metrics she met or the deals she closed. It would be remembered for reminding an entire organization what really matters. And, though her title had changed, she never let it become who she was. She still brought extra coffee to the night staff. She still took time to speak to interns. And whenever someone new asked her how she made it to where she was, she always told the same story. Not about her degrees, not about promotions, but about the man with the cane, the spilled groceries, the cars that didn't stop, and the choice she made to be human before she was anything else. Because that's what's made all the difference. One small act. One missed interview. One powerful outcome. Sometimes the job you want isn't behind the door you plan to knock on, but waiting at the door you almost walked past. Sometimes the future belongs not to the most prepared, but to the most present. Because in a world chasing success, the ones who lead best are those who lead with heart.